So we're on the bench and I'm going to go ahead and rebuild the strut towers now. These were basically just big blocks of rust, these suspension turrets. So let's show you the process of what I've been doing on these ones. These is the main body of suspension shock absorber. These have got the built-in hub carrier for the hub. These arms are for the steering that the steering linkage goes onto, and this part here is what the suspension, one of the arms goes on for the suspension. You'll see later. I don't know if I can get one, I'll show you, hold on. So, and these arms are what link through to the subframe. So eventually when that's bolted onto there, then you get a nut and bolt kit and you bolt that onto there, then that all ties into the subframe. Suspension and the subframe will bolt together like that. I'm in the process of rebuilding the second one now. That's the first one that's finished pretty much. So that's the arm, bolts onto there. Now these are special bolts that go on there. I don't know if you can see them. That's a one-piece bolt. It's got like a nut on it already with a little tiny hole for a locking wire. That locking wire was on there originally actually, but this feels really thin. I've got 0.7 I think. This is 0.7. I might go ahead and buy some 1mm I think, because I remember it being a lot thicker than this. This feels really thin. It's just more to stop these bolts coming undone really and losing. They unwind and you lose your steering on one side, I suppose. That will bolt onto this doodah, the whatchamacallit, onto there. When I took it apart originally, that was packed with grease in there, supposed to stop it rusting. When I originally took these apart, on both of them, this outside hole, the bolt sheared off in the hole on this one, which was a nightmare to drill out. Now, I drilled them out and I retapped them, and I went and bought some of these. I've used these before, and you used to be able to buy them individually. These are really good. They're quite expensive. I only wanted the M8, but all I could see on the internet were like cheap copy ones. And believe me, I've had it. You really don't want that snapping off in the hole, because then you've got a right job getting that out, because that's hardened steel. You can't drill it or anything. You end up fighting with it to getting it out. You end up having to try to twist it out in the end. So on both of these, I've had to, I think that one did snap on me as well actually, and I redid it. So this one's been re-drilled and re-tapped, and also I think for good measure, wherever it is, I've got some Loctite. I bought these Nordlock washers, if you know what they are. They're quite good, but they're actually quite thick. I was going to put them on as a safety precaution, but you end up losing that much thread off the nut, and then that meant when I looked at it there wasn't actually much thread going into the suspension tower, so I left it. I've left them off then, doesn't matter, I can use them elsewhere probably. So once these two towers are built, the bottom section end, I'm going to go ahead and rebuild the top. I've got the suspension, I just bought some just basic oil shock absorbers for these. I didn't go too ballistic. I just want to get it up all and running. I'm not going to race it. I know they recommend getting the Bilstein sports shocks, the gas, but I just went for these. I'm just going for comfort really, more than because everything's just going to makes everything a lot stiffer, doesn't it, on the car. So I'm going to go ahead and rebuild this one, get this one put together now, and then I'll get on with the shock absorbers and start rebuilding the top side of them. So we'll come back then. So these are those bolts I was talking about. These are the ones that bolt the steering part onto the bottom of the suspension tower. So obviously when them two sheared off, these ones, I had to go and buy them. That's what they look like, yeah, new. They were a killer, but you've got no choice really. These are about £8 each. These worked out unfortunately from this company. That's where I mainly get my spares from, and there's a place in the UK that sells them as well, these parts. So yeah, I mean you could probably do something with a nut and bolt really, but you could probably weld a nut onto a bit of thread and make your own thing maybe, but I didn't think of that at the time. I just went ahead and bought the two that I needed. Both the suspension leg setups now are back fully assembled. I've refitted the shock absorber, the one I used. This is the only budget option really, this KYB. It's just an oil filled shot, which is good enough for what I'm going to use it for. So both legs are fully assembled to this stage now. The springs were like completely crusty as well. So when I started cleaning the springs up, they were this kind of blue. So I went ahead, I looked online, and people are just saying you just paint them with regular paint, like regular car aerosol paint. So I don't know how they'll hold up. So they've been painted now. They're ready to be fitted back to the shock towers. So I'm going to go ahead and do that next. Hopefully I won't scuff up the paint too much when they got to be clamped to be fitted, to be compressed, to be put back in there. These were the original bearing shock top plates. I've got new ones of these, replacement ones. So I'm going to go ahead and reassemble now the new towers. Hey tubies, so we have both suspension towers completely rebuilt now, all put back together, springs all complete. So everything is pretty much new parts in there, obviously, other than the original suspension tower part, turret, strut. Got new top plate. They're the ball race top plates for the springs. They bolt into the inner arch. Repainted the springs, all repainted. The lower arms have all been rebushed. That being said, now I'm gonna go ahead now and start refitting them, I think, and we'll come back once I've got those in the car. The completed suspension parts are now all bolted in. They're not torqued up. I've just put them in and nipped up the screws. You can see here, suspension struts in now. And that's the other side in now and complete. So obviously they're missing all the bearings and everything, and I've ordered parts. I've got previous parts new of the, I've got the centre bar, I've got a new centre bar. The track rods are completely shot. One of them was actually bent. So I'm going to keep an eye out for those as well. They're relatively inexpensive. I think they're around about £50 each, complete with the track ends on them as well. Obviously I need 2 of those, so that will complete that. I've still got the anti-roll bar to fit, but that's for another day. But if I need be, I could get the wheels back on if needed be, just to, well, for whatever reason, but I don't need to. I know the whole video is all about EV conversion, and I've got the motor in obviously, and it's on the new motor mounts that I built. You can see that in my previous video. So that's on its own weight now. That these chains are just left here now. They're not doing anything. They're not taking the weight. So the motor is in situ now. So I need to bolt on the inverter, which sandwiches on there. And then there's all the other stuff that needs to go with the EV braking systems shop that needs rebuilding. I did buy the whole replacement brake hose, and I've probably not fitted 90% of it in, so that's all done. I don't know if these servos, I don't know if these are still functioning. They're just like rubber diaphragms, I think, for the vacuum that creates the pressure for the brake pedal. So slow progress. We've moved on from there. I'm thinking what my next little major project's going to be, and the elephant in the room that I keep avoiding all the time is the rotted out front panel.